Hi, my name is Frank Wyve. I'm a software engineer. I'm starting a series on web development, and this is the introductory class. In this series, I would like to show you various mistakes I made while starting out, the mindset, the concepts I think you should approach first, and then introduction to the syntax and how to code and best practices, and all that. But before we get into all those, I want to drop a small caveat here. I figured out that most people, when trying to learn to code, they are trying to memorize syntax, they're trying to memorize the codes and all that, and it becomes difficult and complex. No, rather than trying to memorize the code, try to understand the syntax, try to understand the code. Code is a language. If you speak the language, if you understand the language, you'll be able to speak it fluently, you'll be able to write it down. It's just like if you want to make sentences in English, you don't have to memorize the sentence. You could just easily speak it because you know how to speak English language. Same way you could just write it down because you know how to write English language. Once you understand the syntax of code and not memorize, the thing just comes out. And that's why there's this popular saying that says, code is poetry. While I was starting out, I was trying to memorize paragraph tags, bold tag, underline, list, syntax, and all that, and headers. I was trying to memorize all these things, and it was difficult. And I'll try to memorize and go back and try to reproduce. No, once you're able to read someone else's code, you get to the point where you are also able to reproduce the code. The second mistake I made was the assumption that I have to have everything in my head before starting to code. This is not quite true. You learn by practice. That is the rule of coding. Whether you're learning PHP, whether you're learning HTML, whether you're learning Java, whether you're learning Kotlin, C Sharp, C++, you learn by practice. You do not have all the knowledge in your head before you begin to code. Even some of the best programmers in the world still use the web for research when they're executing projects. You find I've seen a web developer who I thought was quite good or had some experience. He was googling how to center a div. These things leave you sometimes. And take note, the internet is there for such research. There are tools like W3 Schools, just basic Google web search, and even GitHub sometimes for reference purposes, so that if you forget something, you can always know how to go find it. And you will not know what you're looking for if you do not understand the syntax. Follow me on this journey as I share more tips and tricks. Today, we're going to be looking at the introductory part, and I hope that you understand and you follow. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be glad to answer them. All right, so let's just dive into it. I have downloaded an HTML template and I've stored it in a folder I call the tutorial. Um, this tutorial assumes that you have VS Code installed or any popular code editor. All right, so inside the template that I've downloaded, I want you to notice that this is the file structure, for example. Uh, there's a folder called CSS, a folder called fonts, a folder called images, a folder called JS, a folder called videos. Before we explain what these folders are and what they do and why we have them, let's just open um, the sample template so you see what it looks like. All right. So this is what we will be working with. Sorry about my resolutions and screen sizes. Okay, so this is what the template will be stored in. This is what it looks like. It's just a few page website, something random I just saw online. All right, so we'll look at the code now that was used to create this and then see if I can help you better understand the syntax. So you read the code and know what part of the code is generating this video, for example, what part of the code is generating this header, for example, what part of the code is generating this menu bar, and what part of the code is generating this. So you just get to understand um, um, the code that generates these items and all that. Before then, let's look at file structure. While there is no law that says that this must be what your file structure must look like, this is best practice. When I first started, I would just put my CSS, my images, everything in one folder, just one flat folder. It became complex to manage files. Okay. All right. So every website, with emphasis on the word every, has an HTML component and a CSS component. CSS means cascading style sheet, and HTML means hypertext markup language. And let me just drag the folder into my VS Code to open it, so you get to look at what an HTML code looks like. Allow trust. Okay. All right. So this is the index.html. This is HTML code. All right. If we look at the CSS now, this is the CSS code. This is compressed. Let me see if there's something that is not compressed. Okay, this is not compressed. This is the CSS code. Don't let this become overwhelming. All right, nobody knows how to generate all these kind of things in one day or in 1 month. All right, so you get to the parts at some point through practice and constant use of tutorials. You get to a place where you could read this and understand what it means, and then you can reproduce it comfortably without necessarily storing any of all this in your brain or trying to memorize anything. All right, so let's look at the file structure. All right, I think maybe I should just use VS Code only. Okay, so inside this template folder that or website folder that we have, you have two pages: the index page, index.html. In basic website development, your index.html is the landing page. For example, when you go to google.com, what you see is the index.html. Sort of any website you visit, this is the home page, for example. All right. So the home page of that template you just saw, this is the code that generates it. All right. You have let's just see to the end, 482 lines of HTML. It's quite a long page. I don't think most websites do not have a page that is this long with so much content, so much going on at the same time. It's just for example purpose, and let's just follow along. All right. So every website page is divided into three aspects. You have somewhere that is called the head as aspect, and if you check, you see there's what I call an opening tag. You see it starts with a less than sign and then a writing that says head, and then closes with with a greater than sign. And then this is the end on line 34 of the head tag. See what how it closes. There's a another symbol to signify that this is the end of the head tag, and this is what is applicable for almost every tag. Let's go to a new page now and let's do some example. Let's save this as HTML so that we can have code support. Let's just say random.html. Okay. All right. So for example now, if we want to write our own head tag, we could say head. All right. I have some autocomplete systems here. So it has automatically helped me to close the head tag. So this opens the head tag. This tells the browser that a head tag is starting here, or the header of the website is starting here. And this tells the browser that this is where the header is ending. The browser sort of understands the HTML and CSS languages and any other language that you use. So they are able to read your code and interpret it and turn it into graphics, sort of. All right. So, for example, in your average head tag, you would have a title tag. All right. And this will be sort of like the title of the website. For example, this will not be visible on the page itself. For example, let's look at this. Okay, Mac OS X doesn't do justice to this. If you're using another kind of browser, or sorry, Safari or my Safari settings, if you're using another kind of browser, you should probably see uh, something else on top. But let's just keep going and just introduce the syntax the way it should look like. So title will give a title to the website. Let's just say my first website. That's the beginning and that's the end of the tag, for example. So this is the title. All right. If you want to have sort of like a paragraph text or something, um, see this the P sign is the symbol for the paragraph text. All right. Now I'm going to drop a what I call a a cheat sheet. All right. That will highlight some of the very popular tags that are used in basic web development. So you can put some random text in here and say my name is Frank. Why I am flooded Nigerian. All right. So what this says, for example, now is that this is a new paragraph. This is where the paragraph starts, and this is where the paragraph ends. And this is the content of the paragraph. We can add a button and say, button. Hmm? So this is the beginning of the button um, syntax. This is signifies the end. That so anything in between becomes the content of the button. So let's call it the contents of the button. Right. If we look at this right now, this will be very popular, ugly because there's no styling, there's no nothing on it. But let's just see. This is what we just developed. Where we said random. Huh? If you see the content of the button, let's open it on a web page and let's see what it will look like. All right. So the paragraph, my name is Frank Waibe, I am Yoruba, I'm a full-blooded Nigerian. Then this is a button. But there are no actions attached to the button, so you cannot when you click it, it doesn't go anywhere. But it's a button, it's a button. All right. So let's continue to look at the syntax. So we said that every web page is divided into three aspects. So you have the head tag, and in this head tag, you have some popular things that are usually inside. For example, when I was coding a few minutes ago, a few seconds ago, I gave you an example of a title tag. You usually have a title tag in every header. You cannot have the title anywhere else of the website. All right. And then you usually attach link or attach important CSS files or JavaScript files, favicons. I will explain what favicons are later. And I custom fonts, whatever it is that that page, whatever characteristics, added characteristics that that page would have, this is where you link them out. You could see an example of how to link. For example, let's just look at something. Right, there are a couple of CSS style sheets inside this header tag. Let's look at um let's look at some of them. This is one. All right, this is another, that's two. This is another, that's three. This is another, that's four. This is another, that's five. You will say, what is a CSS style sheet? And why do we have them linked in the header tag or in the HTML? All right. If you come back to random.html that we developed, all right. If you notice when we opened it in our browser, it looked so empty. All right. And your basic HTML code just defines the structure and content of the page. Um, It is not best practice, even though it can be done, to add design descriptive elements inside your HTML. So what is best practice is that people link what we call a style sheet, CSS, cascading style sheet. That's what CSS means. People link a cascading style sheet file to the web page. So for example, now on this index.html, the developer had linked this CSS to this page, meaning that when this page loads, it will look for beautification, description of background color, description of text color, description of font size, description of font weight, description of picture backgrounds, the size of the background. It will look for all those things inside these 4 CSS files. So it will load all 4 and look for descriptive elements, descriptive beautification for all these things. For example, this is a head tag. All right, what do I mean by a head tag? There are classifications of text, of what text should look like on an average website. These classifications, you have head, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5 is almost unlimited to any number you want to have, but they signify that this is a caption, is a major title of whatever you're writing. Let me show you an example inside these already designed templates. All right, like this, for example, now this is a head tag. Nomad force is a head tag. This is probably a paragraph text or something else, but not a head tag. Let us create, see how large it is, see how bold it is. This is a head tag. Do you understand? For example, let's come back to this junk or this not on style stuff that we're doing here. Let us put in our own head tag. All right. So let's go to the file now. We'll call this random.html. All right. So let's just say we want to put in our own head tag and let's call it h1, and then we can say my name is Precious Ufoma Hill. All right. I live in Worry. Because it's a head tag, you're going to see that this text that we just put in is going to be extremely larger than the paragraph tag, than the contents of the paragraph tag. The paragraph just says that this is another line of text. This is another set of text. This is a paragraph, regular size. But the H1, this is ordinarily the largest title tag or title text inside the page. So if we come back here now, after having saved and we refresh, you see the text we just put here now as H1. See how large it is. So let's go back now and let's put H2 and then let's see the difference in size. H2, let's just say today is my birthday. All right, that's an H2 text, H2 tag. Let's try H3. I will say I'm just joking. It's really, it's really isn't. All right. Um, for the want of time, let's just jump down to H6 and just says that I like ice cream. All right. So let's save. Let's go back to the web page and then let's refresh and then let's see what we have and what it looks like. So if we say refresh, see the difference. So the H1 title is the largest header. When you're developing, these are best practices. These can be changed, but not advisable. But then these are average best practices. Once you put something within the H1 tag, you are saying that this should be the largest thing in the website. H2 is the size that follows H1, And the higher you go in the number after the H, the smaller the text becomes. If you notice, back in our code, this is H1, H2, H3. Then we jumped to, I think, H5. Let's look at it. And then that is H6 ahead. That's how we got to this. All right. So you might be saying, okay, I want to cram this. I want to cram H1. I want to cram H2. No, by constant usage, you get used to it. Remember when you just first started reading and writing, you had to start with a queen primer, is, of, off, if, a fat cat sat on a mat, just to help you make sentences and all that. It sounds ridiculous now, but when you were starting it, it was complex. I must tell you, this is not just easy. In fact, nothing is in this world. Anything that is good is a bit complex, but anybody can know it with practice. All right. So I'm going to show you again. Just don't be intimidated by the size of this. All right. I'm just going to show you. I just want to show you the different aspects of a web page. All right. So you have the head tag. You have the header section of the website that contains links to CSS, titles, and a few other things. All right. So let's minimize this, for example. Let's minimize this so we can look at something else. All right. Next, you have the body. This actually is the visible part of the website. This actually, all these things in the header part of the website help the websites to look nice and to function. If you have, if there's some sort of script, JavaScript, to do any specific animations, you will not code that animation inside this HTML page. You code that on a separate JavaScript file and then link it here. So how is it linked? For example, now look at this style sheet. You want to say, how did this person link it? So what this person has said now is that link href equals to quotation marks. All right. Then it starts. It says that there's a folder called CSS, which is this. Let's open it just to be sure. Inside that folder, there's a file called bootstrap-icons.css, and you'll sincerely look at that file here. Inside that file, this is the content. Don't be intimidated by this. This template is actually a very advanced template. I think in our next class, I'm going to set up and use something extremely simple. So like I was saying, get to the point where you are able to read and understand the syntax. And I'm going to drop a cheat sheet and a link on this video, and then you probably be able to say, look at the cheat sheet and know what each tag, what they do. What is a div, for example? What is a section, for example? um what are classes? I'm going to do all those explanations in our next video, but I'm going to end this video here and I'm going to drop it, and I want you to ask some questions, and then let's see how it goes. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.